Hello and good evening, everyone who's joining us tonight. My name is Tani, and I'll be the moderator for tonight's West Anchorage Candidates Forum. I just want to start by welcoming all of the Assembly and School Board candidates joining us tonight, and everyone who is watching this forum now, or maybe watching the recorded. Thank you for joining us, and also a big thank you to our wonderful West Anchorage councils for holding this event tonight. It's been a wonderful journey the past few weeks of planning this. So tonight we're going to start with the Assembly Candidates Forum, and we want to welcome our candidates who are joining us for Assembly District 3. And then the second part of the evening, as I mentioned earlier, we'll move into the seats for school board, seat A and B. Before we go into all the nitty-gritty details, I would like to start with a land acknowledgement. So with that, I want to acknowledge that we live and thrive on the traditional lands of the Dena'ina people and thank them for their stewardship over thousands of years and for this wonderful place that all of us call home. So let's move on to some more information. This forum, if you don't know, is sponsored by the community councils in West Anchorage. And I want to take a moment to acknowledge the sponsoring council presidents at this time. We have Matt Johnson of North Star, Jason Mellersig of Sand Lake, Meg Milkey of Spenard, and Anna Brawley of Turnagain. Thank you all for your engagement with community councils. It's a lot of work to be president and to be on the boards. So we always want to make sure to call their participation out. And a few other thank yous before we move on to the format. We want to give a special shout out to the Federation of Community Councils. It's an organization not a lot of folks know about, but they're the ones who helped us with the webinar license, and it's an amazing task that they do, the work that they do with a very small team. And also a thank you to those who served on our forum organizing committee with me. So thank you to everyone. A lot of thanks to put this event on. All right, so let's move on to the format. So the format for tonight's forum is a Zoom webinar. This may look slightly different from the regular Zoom meetings we've all become familiar with over the last 2 years. And part of that is to make sure that this is as easy for everyone to view it as it is to participate in it for candidates. As I mentioned before, the event is split into 2 separate forums. We'll start with the candidates for the Anchorage Assembly seat District 3, then move on to the candidate forum for school board seat A and B. Our planning committee, which included members from North Star, Spenard, and Turnagain community councils, solicited questions ahead of time from our members of our respective community councils and then narrowed them down. And those questions will be presented tonight to the different candidates. Candidates have not seen these questions in advance of tonight's event. One thing about this webinar that I want to point out for the audience is that the two-way chat function and the question and answer features have been disabled. This is to ensure that the attention is focused on the candidate and their responses. We also intend to have your views set to candidates, myself, and the timekeeper for each forum. So that's what our wonderful technical team is going to be doing in the background while we go through this. In case there are any technical issues or delays, our very hardworking team is going to work to fix it, and we just appreciate everyone's patience and understanding as we move through this event with as little disruption as possible. So finally, one last reminder to candidates to please keep yourself on mute when it is not your turn to answer questions, and to confirm that you are unmuted and that your video is turned on when it is your turn to speak. If you forget to mute yourself, our support staff will do it for you. And this is to ensure that there are no distractions when another candidate is speaking. And the last thing I will say is just a reminder that we expect that all candidates participating tonight will follow the rules that I'm about to go over, as well as be civil and engage in a civil discourse tonight, but respectful of the rules, please, and thank you. Okay, so with that, here are the ground rules for tonight. We will start each section of the forum with introductions from candidates, which will be limited to 1 minute each. Then we'll move on to the questions, which were carefully compiled by the co-sponsoring community councils. Individual answers to those questions will be limited to 1 minute and 30 seconds each. Each will be directed to candidates in random order. Candidates, after I read each question, it will be shared in the chat feed. If at any point you need me to repeat the entire question, please ask. Meg, our timekeeper, wave your hand, Meg, there she is, has the stopwatch and will hold up time limit signs for panelists to keep our event running smoothly. Panelists, please make sure that you are in gallery viewing mode so you can see her. She will be holding up a 1 minute warning, a 30-second warning, and wait for it, a 15-second warning, followed by a wonderful red stop sign. Meg, you might have to hold it up a little bit more so that, yep, there you go. Perfect. When your time is up. So in lieu of a bell, she'll use the stop sign and we'll do our best, yes, to let you finish your thought, but we will mute you if you go on too long because we really need to stay on track. People, it's an important part of our job tonight. So finish your thoughts quickly, folks. We're giving you some extra time on these questions. And with that, it is time to kick off this first part of the forum with the candidates for Anchorage Assembly. So let's begin with introductions. And in 1 minute or less, please explain why you are the best candidate for the Anchorage Assembly seat for District 3. We'll start with Mr. Cameron Perez-Verdia.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Great. Well, hi, everybody. My name is Cameron Perez-Verdia. I'm running for re-election to the Anchorage Assembly, representing the West Side. Thank you to the community councils for this event. I believe that I'm the best candidate really for 3 reasons. 1, my commitment to public service. I have a 30-year career in public service. I have 2 daughters that go to school here in town, and my wife works as a nurse. I'm truly committed to the future of this city. 2nd is experience. I have almost a 30-year career in business, balancing teams, building budgets and solving problems. And 3rd is leadership, listening to all sides, making informed decisions, putting politics aside and focusing on the work. It's been a really tough last 2 years, and we're facing some really challenging times ahead. However, I am very hopeful about the future of this city. And I believe now more than ever, we need experienced and balanced leadership on the Assembly. So my name is Cameron Perez-Verdia, and I would really appreciate your vote in April. And I'm looking forward to the conversation today. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Cameron. Next will be Mr. Niall Sherwood-Williams.
Hi, yes, thank you to everyone. Niall Sherwood-Williams. I would really appreciate everyone's vote in the coming days and on April 5th, 2022. The reasons why you should choose me as an Anchorage Assembly candidate: I will call for and demand accountability and transparency of our local government officials from the top down. I will cause everyone to follow the rules, not just Robert's Rules of Order, but constitutional law. I will stand up for individual liberty as I always have. Now is not the time to compromise one's principles. Now is the time to stand strong. We as a community can come together, but it will take a real leadership outside of traditional political parties. Williams works for West Anchorage. Thank you very much, and I look forward to winning your vote.
Thank you, Niall. And finally, Miss Liz Vazquez. Miss Vazquez, if you could unmute yourself and turn your video on, hopefully you can hear us. We will check in with our tech team to see if she's been messaging us in the background. Give her a little bit more time. Ms. Vazquez, are you here with us? Well, we see her on the screen, so we know. Oh, Ms. Vazquez, I see you unmuted. Can you go ahead and turn your video on and do your 30-second, or I'm sorry, your 1 minute introduction? Okay. Let's stand by. That patience, I I thanked everyone for it in advance. It's coming in handy right now. Just give me 1 minute while we sort this out. I wish I had a good joke up my sleeve. Unfortunately, I don't. We could talk about how strange this weather is and how I don't understand why October, just November and December were so dang cold, and then suddenly it's so warm right now. Checking in again with Ms. Vazquez is.
Oh, Tani, sorry, this is Anna Brawley, just a part of the tech support. I was going to suggest Ms. Vasquez could try using a phone to call in. There's a phone number as well as the link. That might be helpful if you're having audio issues.
Yes. Okay.
I
We'll
think
give
the weather's a great appropriate topic that is unconfrontational, that you can speak with any sorts of people about. And the snow seems to be kind of wet, but it gives traction to the tires if you're going up a steep incline.
It is, yes. Okay, let's I think we're gonna move on and we're gonna see if Ms. Vazquez can call in and sort out the technical details. And we'll go back to her for an introduction at that time. We'll make sure she gets that opportunity. But for now, we are going to move on to our list of 6 questions. And Ms. Vazquez, as you are available, if your camera can turn on, we'll kind of flag for that, and or you can message our technical team and just let them know. So let's move on to our list of 6 questions. As a reminder, all candidates will have up to 1.5 minutes or 90 seconds to provide a response. A copy of the question will be added to the chat, but again, let me know if you'd like me to read the full question out loud. So question 1, there is no question that we are experiencing an intense and divisive time in Anchorage. If elected, how will you, as an assembly member, put political partisanship aside and avoid an us versus them dynamic and do what is best for this community? Let's go to Mr. Williams to kick us off for the evening.
Hi, yes, thank you for that opening question. It's very simple. Honor your oath of office, your oath to the United States Constitution, and your oath to the Constitution of the state of Alaska. If you honor your oath to defend individual rights, liberty, and freedom, everything else comes from there. We are not feelings police on the assembly. We are not social controllers on the assembly. We are required to pass ordinances which follow and conform to charter and constitutional law. We are required to stand up and demand change when individual liberty is threatened. So when someone is petitioning their government for a redress of grievances, Mr. Perez-Verdia, and you stand by and watch them get arrested, Mr. Perez-Verdia, that's a violation of your oath of office. So I am concerned not of how the assembly feels about one another, but when it comes to being open ears to your constituents and available, I promise to always be available. I promise to always go to the meetings just like I always do when I'm not paid. So certainly when I am being paid, I will be there. I promise to stand up for the rights of everyone and to listen to your phone call when you call. Every person's voice counts equally. Every email, every phone call, every text, every in-person question will be treated equally. Everyone will be given equal treatment before the law, as is guaranteed under the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution, which enjoins municipal employees to support and defend individual rights against all enemies, foreign and domestic. So once again, I promise to honor my oath to the United States Constitution and to the Constitution of the state of Alaska. And
thank you, Mr. Williams. I appreciate that thoughtful response. Just a reminder to candidates that we just asked that you try to answer the question and stick within the time limit. Ms. Vazquez, you are next. I'm not sure. I haven't seen your camera turn on, so I don't think we've started out the technical issues. Can give her a chance to speak or join in. Okay, we're going to move on to make sure we can stay on track for this evening and hope that gets sorted out. Mr. Perez-Verdia, you are up. If elected, how will you as an assembly member put political partisanship aside, avoid an us versus them dynamic, and do what is best for this community?
Thanks for the question. Honestly, we need to have more open dialogues as a community and listen to one another about what we believe and how those beliefs overlap. And I've worked hard to listen to my constituents and consider every viewpoint in making important decisions during my time on the Assembly. I'm also the president and CEO of the Alaska Humanities Forum, where we work to host these very same kind of dialogues and explore reasons for our current polarity. Campaigns are a unique opportunity to get out and to talk with residents before they make a decision for the future. And I've enjoyed door knocking over the past several months, talking to folks about their different backgrounds and beliefs and what they hope to see moving forward. Given the current media environment, I think folks will be surprised by really how much the Assembly and the mayor have in common. There's been quite a few projects that we've worked together on, and I believe that that'll be true moving forward. At the end of the day, local government should be a mundane way of bringing community members together. And I think when we give each other the chance to do so civilly and productively, we can accomplish really great things. So I will continue to have an open door. I will continue to reach out to others, listen to both sides, and really focus on the work, put politics aside and focus on the most important thing. And that is making good decisions for the people of Anchorage and specifically the people from the West Side. Thanks.
Thank you. And I see Liz Vazquez has unmuted herself and has her hand raised. I'm hoping she's there. Ms. Vazquez? We're not hearing you. So if you're speaking, oh, and now she's muted. I want to make a joke about the potential of a cat maybe stepping on a laptop at this point, because gosh, that's happened to some of us with pets at this being all remote for so long. Okay, so before we move on, we're just going to move on to the next question. Sorry, I don't want to, it's a little difficult when the candidate appears to be on, but is not able for technical reasons to speak. So, okay, we will keep moving through the next series of
Are we still on?
questions. Mr. Yes,
Oh.
and we'll make sure to let you know when you're not, when it's that next time for school board. So moving on, question number 2. Over 9,500 Anchorage residents and families have experienced homelessness last year for a variety of reasons, including economic insecurity, unstable or seasonal employment, high rent costs, behavioral health issues, intergenerational trauma, impacts of colonialism, and COVID-19. What do you see as the role of the administration and the Assembly in making progress on this issue in both the short-term and long-term future of Anchorage? First up is Ms. Vazquez. Gonna give, oh, I think actually she dropped off. So we're gonna move on to the next candidate, Mr. Perez-Verdia. You are up.
Thank you very much. So just some background, I had the opportunity a long time ago to work at Catholic Social Services and to work in the field of homelessness. When I got on the Assembly, I joined the Homelessness Committee as co-chair. It's been one of my priorities from the very beginning to address this very challenging issue. And I actually believe that even in this very difficult time, we've made some progress. As many of you know, Anchorage has a strategic roadmap to ensure homelessness is rare, brief, and one time. It's called Anchored Home. It emphasizes 4 pillars: prevention and diversion, housing and support, public health and safety, and advocacy and funding. And during my time on the Assembly, I've supported policy and fiscal choices that will fund the acquisition of hotels for conversion into needed shelters for the medically fragile. It's called the Sakayin. And I've increased municipal support for social service providers and helped to advocate for funding for things like the mobile crisis team. And now I'm working on a day center that will provide services that folks need to find jobs, secure long-term housing, and break the cycle of homelessness. And so this is an issue that's very important to me. I think one of the most important things to know is that For the first time really in ever, we have $10 million committed from private, business, and philanthropic organizations that support the plan that we're moving on forward. There's still a long way to go, many challenges in front of us, but I do believe that we're making progress, and I will continue to be a champion of this issue and ensure that we're making real progress on homelessness in Anchorage.
Thank you for that. Let's go next to Mr. Williams. What do you see as the roles of the administration and the assembly in making progress on this issue in both the short term and long term?
So Niall Sherwood Williams, and I've actually been homeless. When I moved to the community of Anchorage, I was homeless for 9 months. So I know exactly what it's like to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and get out of it. I also know exactly what it's like to have an elitist talk down to you, someone that's making $200,000 to $500,000 per year at the Alaska Humanities Forum, who doesn't understand humanity in the slightest. I mean, let's be honest here. The Alex Hotel Inn and Suites right across from the Barrett Inn was a money laundering scheme. And only after I posted on my YouTube channel, Polar Press, the deplorable human rights violations that were going on there and at the Sullivan, only then did you shut down the Barrett Inn money laundering scheme with Terry Pisa and the administration. So it's interesting that you say also, Cameron Perez-Verdia, that you want to work together with your private partners. I'd call that conspiracy. I would call that money laundering and racketeering. I would call that making deals outside of the public interest and the public view in violation of the Open Meetings Act. So I thank you today, Cameron Perez-Verdia, for admitting that actual misdemeanor crime for which you can be fined for $10,000. So these are one of the things that I promise. I promise to stand up for the individual, right? We got people's rights being eroded down at Sullivan Arena over at the Alex Hotel. It's going on right now at the Sockeye right now. And what happened to the alcohol tax fund? You laundered $6.67 million that was missing from the alcohol tax fund. Still has not been accounted for, Mr. Perez-Verdia.
Thank you. Just a reminder to candidates that we want you to speak to your own qualifications for the position and not to another candidate's, as this is not a debate and we don't have an opportunity for them to respond. So we really want the focus to be on why you're here and your qualifications and responses to the question. Okay, so it seems like we may have Ms. Vazquez on the line. And just to confirm, Ms. Vazquez, can you go ahead and unmute on the phone and just speak up so we can make sure you're on? Oh man, I really thought this was gonna work.
And sorry, this is Anna Brawley again. I believe the unmute is *6 or #6 per phone.
Yeah.
So try *6.
*6. Perfect.
Yes, hi, this is Liz Vazquez.
Hi, Liz. So what we're gonna do, since you're on a phone, we will have you muted. Just be aware that it's *6. Make a note of that. And what we're gonna do is just have you do a 1 minute introduction, and then we will allow you to, since we're not that far in, answer the 2 questions after. So
Sure.
we'll time you for 1 minute. And Meg, go ahead. So Ms. Vazquez, it's all yours.
Okay. Thank
The
you.
introduction, sorry. Before you start, I should read you the actual thing that I asked everybody else, which is, in 1 minute or less, explain why you are the best candidate for the Anchorage Assembly seat for District 3. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I'm the best candidate because I have a long history of public service. I've been a prosecutor, and by the way, I did not vote for SB 91 when I was down in Juneau representing my district. I been an administrative law judge. I have served 1 term in the legislature. I am now helping victims of violent crimes, and I have served on several commissions, city commissions, including the Budget Advisory Commission, the School Budget Advisory Commission, and served 6 years on the Shugat Electric Board of Directors. I have always been pro-consumer, always mindful of the people's business. I had two bills when I was a freshman legislator passed. Both bills were pro-consumer, helping the community. One bill was for telehealth. This was before COVID, and I had 14 co-sponsors. The other bill was a domestic violence and protection for pets. That had 15 co-sponsors. So I have a long history of being involved in the community. I have over the
Okay.
sorry.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if you can see our timekeeper, so.
I can't. I'm so sorry.
Oh, you can. Okay.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. She can't see it. I didn't hear that. Okay. Well, we'll do our best to let you finish your thought. So hopefully if you have a timer on your phone or something, you can just keep an eye on the clock. So thank you for that introduction. Let's give you a chance to answer the first question of this evening, which is, if elected, how will you as an assembly member put political partisanship aside, avoid an us versus them dynamic, and do what is best for this community? As a reminder, you will have 1 minute and 30 seconds, and we'll still raise the stop signs, so folks in the audience can follow along. So go ahead, Ms. Vazquez.
And Ms. Vazquez,
Well,
I'll say
first of
10
all-
seconds. Sorry, this is Meg, the timer. I'll say 10 seconds or 15 seconds so you have a heads up if that sounds good.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I'm sorry for the difficulties. First of all, I do have a degree in mediation and arbitration from the National Judicial College. I believe in trying to find common ground when there's disagreement. I think, first of all, that the assembly members need to be more polite, more courteous, and more respectful of the public that comes before them. I have firsthand seen them be disrespectful, arrogant, and condescending, which is totally the wrong attitude. So I have chaired a big board, and it's been contentious, and you have to find the middle ground. And I have that experience. When I served in Juneau, I had 14 co-sponsors from both sides. In another bill, I had 15 co-sponsors. So I'm prepared to help the community. This is not a resume builder for me. Is my time up?
Yeah, well, no, you have.
Thank
Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, the second question we asked, just so folks tonight have a chance to hear your position on it, which I think is really important in this assembly race. Our second question was on the issue of homelessness, which is a major issue that we face here in Anchorage. The question is, what do you see as the role of the administration and the assembly in making progress on this issue in both the short term and long term? And you'll have a minute and a half to answer.
Well, the assembly and the mayor have been working very hard on this issue, and it seems that the issue is being somewhat resolved. I would say that I would lean more on the Alaska Mental Health Trust and other resources like the Division of Mental Health Services within the Department of Health and Social Services to provide more mental health treatment. I find that there is a real need for more mental health treatment, which is housing is fine. It's a good idea, but along with that, you need to have some mental health treatment. So my emphasis would be, yes, what we're doing appears to be going along well, but we do need to figure out in the long term how to deal with the homeless. And it's not just providing housing. Thank you.
Thank you for that answer. Now we will move on to question 3. So it should go a little more smoothly with all of our candidates online. Anchorage has long had a housing crisis with unaffordable rents and mortgages, few options, and deteriorating properties. Much of West Anchorage is already built to limits of current zoning. What policies will you work to advance on the Assembly to increase availability of non-subsidized affordable housing? For this question, we will start with Mr. Perez-Verdia.
Thank you. This is such an important issue for us all to be discussing. We need more affordable housing. And And we need to be focusing on our infrastructure in general. And so I think that, first of all, we need to invest in public infrastructure that encourages this kind of responsible development. We need to be working on new roads, sewer, water systems. We need ways to publicly invest in our infrastructure to support development, such as the Sand Hill Reserve subdivision in Sand Lake. There are new plots of land that are opening up in different parts of our city, and we need to make sure that we're working both with the community and with developers to develop that responsibly. This is absolutely critical. The most recent stats that I've seen say that we need 900 residential units in our community to meet each year to meet the demand that we're going to see in the next 10 to 15 years. And what I hear when I walk around and not knocking on doors is I hear folks are concerned about drainage, snow removal, our new snow dump, traffic calming, and the difficulties with our planning department. So what I would do is I need to work with the administration to make the planning department more efficient, and so that we can respond, work with the realtors and the home builders to ensure that they have the resources that they need and the incentives that they need to build. It's a difficult issue, but I think moving forward, we're going to see some federal infrastructure money that is going to help, and I think that we can make progress on our housing challenges.
Thank you. Mr. Williams, we'll go to you next. What policies will you work to advance in the Assembly to increase the availability of non-subsidized affordable housing?
Yes, so it's interesting. Let's see, we have numerous problems with affordable housing, but it certainly comes from government getting out of the way. So when we're talking about selling off parcels of land, the Turnagain Community Council came out in droves because you were trying to sell a woodland park lot with a non-competitive bid, and you didn't put it before the community council. You, Cameron Perez-Verdia, you are responsible for that. That's why it's pushed back to March 15th. That's why the council's not going to vote on it until then. So we need to stop selling off our land to cover up shortfalls. You're selling off parkland at pennies on the dollar to cover up cash shortfalls that you have. That's a huge problem. Another thing, when you raise property taxes, so everyone's housing valuation went up about 13% this year. So that's what's causing your taxes to go up. That's what's causing your fees to go up. Where's that being spent? Another thing, Mr. Perez-Verdia, you've had $1.7 billion pass through your greedy hands in the past year. What have you done with it? Where's the money? We need to have the money be listed online so you don't steal all the infrastructure money package too, just like you did the CARES Act money. Accountability and transparency, it goes for everyone on that council and everyone in that administration. You elect Niall Sherwood Williams to that assembly, I promise you, there won't be another dollar laundered off that council. There won't be another theft of services. There won't be another open meetings.
Thank you. Unfortunately, we are going to have to tighten up on the time limits for and muting folks just because we are running a little bit behind and we need to make sure we can get to the school board in a timely fashion. So
also remind folks, there's no option for me to reply to the allegations.
Yes.
So
yes, I will remind folks. And then if you want to go on mute, Cameron, but that was in my to remind folks that we really want you
Tell the truth.
We really want folks to speak to your qualifications because we don't have the time to allow folks to respond to accusations, comments, allegate, whatever you want to call it. We want to make sure that we're focused on the issue of that we're asking about and as it relates to what you would do as an assembly member, because this is a candidates forum. So that's just really important for tonight. So let's move on with the question to Ms. Vazquez. What policies, it's been a while, what policies will you work to advance on the Assembly to increase the availability of non-subsidized affordable housing?
Well, this is a serious issue, and I think historically the city has been very laid back about approving permits and placing obstacles on those individuals that are trying to provide new housing. So there needs to be more accountability from the planning department and other departments that affect the housing industry. More than that, we also need, it's really important to improve our infrastructure, our drainage, our roads. You may be able to build more housing, but you need to have the appropriate drainage and the appropriate water system and sewer system and the appropriate studies on the traffic. What does it do to the traffic in the area? So I find that in some of these projects, there isn't sufficient emphasis placed on dealing with what the traffic situation will become after the new housing is built. And we do need affordable housing. So I'm for, doing what I can. And the reason why I'm running is I want to improve the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vazquez. Now we're going to move on to our next question. Question 4, though the airport is an important economic driver, there have been concerns among West Anchorage residents regarding noise, heavy truck traffic, air pollution, and building over wetlands. As a West Anchorage Assembly member and representative, how will you advocate on behalf of residents during these negative impacts? Please be specific, and you'll have 1.5 minutes to answer. Mr. Williams, you're up first.
Hi, yes, Niall Sherwood Williams. So whenever we're talking about the airport, we got to also talk about the railroad and the Port of Alaska. So I, Niall Sherwood Williams, am going to develop all 3 of those to the 21st century when I'm on the Anchorage Assembly, and I'm going to make the United States military pay for it. That's what I'm going to do, because it's critical infrastructure that all Alaskans must use. Any visitor must use. You want to go to the shelf and get a gallon of milk, it requires that port get used. So it's critical. They failed to account for the commercial transportation versus residential. So we have everyone driving up L Street in Minnesota, tearing up the road with those giant trucks. Well, they should have built a commercial roadway that was raised and elevated. That was a mistake a long time ago. And nobody's been able to look themselves in the mirror in this city ever. That's why we have trouble when we call each other out for our principles and we think it's an attack on the person, okay? We messed up a long time ago. We need to get things right and move forward into the 21st century and stop arguing amongst ourselves. So when things are clearly wrong, let's build infrastructure to fix it. All right, where there's 2 lanes and we need 3, let's make it happen and make it happen now. Let's get government out of the way. If the state won't pay for it, then the city needs to. I mean, wake up, do your job. You've been there for 3 years.
Thank you. Next will be Ms. Vazquez.
Yes, my family and myself will be directly impacted by this project. I will be seeing it every day as long as I stay where I am, because we live right on Tanana Drive, right off Raspberry, right in front of this project. I think it's very important for the community to keep an eye and ensure that there's a balance between the needs of the airport and the economic needs of the companies that are going to be expanding there. But we also are very concerned about the water quality, the impact of noise, the impact of the light. There's a lot of issues that need to be monitored and carefully navigated. And I am definitely, involved. It impacts me directly and my family. We are on sewer and water, our own well. I'm really concerned about the quality of my air, quality of my water, our water, I should say, my family.
15-second warning.
Yeah, no. So that is a project that is definitely going to be front and center, and we need to ensure there's a proper balance and that the needs of the community are taken care of while the needs of the airport are also taken care of. So
Thank you
That's all.
for that. Thank you. Moving to question 5. Oh, no, you're right. Thank you. Moving to Mr. Perez-Verdia. You are
Thank you.
up. Go ahead.
Thanks so much. In this case, I really agree with a lot of what Ms. Vazquez is saying. One of the big roles that this position requires you to play is to be able to do both, right? To be able to work for responsible development in our city, whether that's housing or whether that's the project at the airport. But it's also important that we listen to the community and that they have an active role in how this is developed, and that their concerns are heard, and that we work to advocate to make sure that that development doesn't have negative impacts on communities. And this is such an incredible role for community councils, and the West Side community councils have been especially engaged in this particular project, have met with them many times. I've been at those meetings and working to make sure that this has as minimal impact as possible. So that's the role that I would play is continuing to make sure that the community has a voice, but also to know that we want our community developed. We want housing and we want jobs and we want those kinds of things that really help our city to grow. But we just need to make sure that it's done in a responsible way. And so I will continue to listen to the community. I will continue to champion the concerns that they have and make sure that whatever is developed, it's done in a thoughtful and responsible way that helps both our city move forward, but to protect the neighborhoods and then the communities that we live in. And I live right near there as well. So it's going to be an impact on me as well. So thanks.
Thanks, Cameron. Before we move on to our next question, I just want to take an opportunity because it's 6:48. And I know we have some school board candidates who are going to be joining us about this time. We have 2 more questions left in our candidate section with the assembly members, and then we will move on. So please don't leave, just sit tight, stay on mute, off camera, and we will begin that parts shortly. So moving on to question 5. Our city bus system does not adequately meet the needs of many West Anchorage residents, and sidewalk and bike lanes often become depositories for snow plowed from the roads. What is your plan as an assembly member to improve transit safety and access for non-motorized users? Please be specific. This question, we will have Ms. Vazquez start us off.
Sure. Do you mean bicycles and pedestrians, or are you including the bus system?
We are including all non-motorized users who are not drivers of vehicles. I guess that might be a better one, who are not the drivers of motorcycles, cars, trucks, those users.
Yeah, this is a big frustration living in this city, and that it's very difficult for pedestrians to walk. The sidewalks have lots of ice and snow. Very difficult. I'm very empathetic. I don't know what the answer is. I do know that we should look to best practices, look at the northern climate, European countries, Minnesota, other states that are also have this issue with the weather. In other words, a lot of our walkways get icy, and of course snow removal is needed. So I think it's very critical to have snow removal. I know it's not a big priority with a lot of people, but some people are not able to drive, and you want people to go and be able to walk their dogs or to just take a walk and get some exercise. So yeah, it's always bothered me that we don't really maintain as well these sidewalks and walkways as well as we should. So, I live in a woodsy area, and I have a
15
trail
seconds.
bike. So I like living in a place that has trails and then and enables people to recreate and walk, and it's just a wonderful way of quality of life, if you will.
Thank you.
I would do a deep dive on that one. I really would, because I think we need
They-
to improve.
Thank you, Ms. Vazquez. We're going to move on to the next candidate. Mr. Perez-Verdia, you're up.
Thank you. This is such an important issue. I've been working very hard over the last 3 years with John Weddleton and others to look at how to improve our city, to make it more walkable and bikeable. And it means that we have to have a commitment for that. It means that we have to have robust bonds, which I've fought for every year, and build trails and connect trails so that folks can use those. But it also means that we need to have a vision for the future of this city, daylighting Fish Creek, and really creating an environment where we're attracting people to come to our city. We want people to live, play, and work here, right? And trails and bikeable and walkable cities are where people want to be. And so we need to be doing that because it'll help with our late labor shortage. It'll help to make sure that our schools are filled, and it'll help our economy because folks will want to be here. So I would just say that the community development plans that we work on, and the community councils that are heavily involved in those are vital, because those set a path forward for how we're going to develop our city in the future. It's an incredibly important issue to me, and I will continue to fight for it. Our city typically, focuses more on cars, how to move more cars faster, and that needs to change. We need to shift to a city that we can walk and bike in. So that'll continue to be a priority for me as I move back onto the assembly. Thanks.
Thank you. And finally, Mr. Williams.
Yes, so I'm glad I got to go third on this one. So who y'all gonna trust? An elitist or someone that actually walks every day? So let me ask you the question, Liz Vazquez, Cameron Perez-Verdia. I know you can't answer, but y'all can attack me anytime you want. How many miles y'all walked in the past week or month? Because I've walked about 50. And I just like to say that we don't need to sit in our ivory tower and think about it and do traffic studies. Get out and walk. Look at it. Back where I'm from, back east, everyone has to shovel their own sidewalk. If they don't, they get fined. That's the way it works. That's the way you get people to clean up their sidewalk and make the conveyance of the sidewalk open. That's how you do it. You force people to do it. You require people to clean up their houses and their front yards or face penalties. I keep hearing Liz in the background. Can you stop interrupting, Miss Vazquez?
Yeah. Ms. Vazquez, I think if you could we'll pause your time, Niles. So Meg, if you could just pause it. Ms. Vazquez, if you could just mute the phone. Yeah, perfect on your end. And then Mr. Williams, go ahead. We'll resume with your time on the question.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. So when you're outside and out and about, I know that it requires that we have better signage. There needs to be stuff for people with disabilities. So not all our crosswalks have disabled technologies for those that need to have that little buzzer. There's a nice little dog in the background making a bunch of noise. So that's part of it. Just get out and about, enjoy your community, stop arguing amongst ourselves. And when it comes to transportation, we need to accommodate all of it. It's time for a tram system.
Thank you for that answer, Mr. Williams. Now we are going to move on to our final question for the assembly candidates this evening. So just a reminder for folks tonight, we want to make sure you're speaking to your qualifications and what you will do as an assembly candidate, and to focus on the question being asked. Our team worked really hard on these questions, and so there's a reason folks want to hear these answers. So question 6 is a 2-part question, and I'm happy to repeat it as needed for folks. The municipality engages in public-private partnerships, but these partnerships can also create a lack of transparency in reporting to the public and can promote profit over quality public service. To what extent do you feel that public services should be privatized? And how do you ensure that public funds paid to private businesses are being properly spent on services to benefit the public good? So a reminder that we want candidates to speak to their qualifications and answer this question specifically for themselves and only themselves in this case. So people have a chance to hear about your policies and philosophy. So we're going to start with Mr. Perez-Verdia on this one. Go ahead. You have 1 minute and 30 seconds.
Thank you. As I mentioned in the very beginning, I have been working in public service my whole life. And so serving on the school board and then on the assembly was a totally new experience. And it's been really eye-opening to learn about the role of assembly and the importance of the kind of oversight that you're talking about. I tend to be very cautious about privatizing things that are done by the city. It's an effort to make things more in some ways cost efficient, but often it doesn't turn out that way. I think part of the role of being on the assembly is ensuring that we have proper oversight over the services that we provide. And so generally speaking, I like to make sure that we're being more efficient. I want to make sure that we're spending our money wisely. And if that means that we use a private vendor to be able to do services, it needs to have the kind of oversight and checks that are necessary to make sure that it's done in a responsible way. But generally speaking, it is the role of the municipal government to ensure that we have police and fire and roads are plowed and we have public schools, and these are vital services that should never be privatized. We should never go to a voucher system, for instance, for our schools. These are a public service that need to stay that way so we can make sure they have the proper oversight that they deserve. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Williams, you're next. Go ahead.
All right. So Niall Sherwood Williams, I'd just like to note that no specifics about private partnerships were provided. One example is Securitas Inc. They stationed themselves at the health department, the libraries, the assembly chambers. So why do you use a private company there? The real answer is to avoid financial liability when those armed thugs violate people's rights. Okay, so when someone, an agent of the municipality, violates an individual's rights, the city's liable. But when you use a private contractor such as Securitas, you can use them as brutal Gestapo thugs to come up and attack the citizenry and throw them out of meetings. So that's why you've used that. And you have appropriated that money for 3 years now for that contract. Another example of a private government partnership would be 99 Plus One Inc., formed by Terry Pizza on July 1st, 2021, the date the mayor took office. And what that is that's the company that oversees the Sullivan, the Alex Hotel, and the Sockeye Inn, just to name a few. So that's another example of private partnerships where quid pro quo. You do this for me, you help me get elected, Terry Pizza, says Mr. Mayor, and I'm going to give you this bloated contract, and you're going to help me get elected. I'm going to give you some money, and Mr. Perez-Verdia, you're not innocent in this.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. We'll end this evening's questions with Ms. Vazquez. Let me know if you
I
need
don't
me to
think that
repeat.
was my full time.
It was 1 minute and 30. We have multiple people on the timer here. Ms. Vazquez, let me know if you would like me to repeat the question.
Can you repeat it, please?
Sure. To what extent do you feel that public services should be privatized? And how do you ensure that public funds paid to private businesses are being properly spent on services to benefit the public good?
This goes to whether you have audits, whether a service is provided by a private company or private identity or by public servants. You do need to have accountability. I am passionate about accountability. And when I served on the City Budget Advisory Commission, I was quite shocked to find out that with a bigger budget that we have, we only had a half position dedicated to auditing the budget and auditing how money is spent. So I am passionate about providing better value to the community. In fact, that's why I'm running. Our taxes keep going up and up, 20% since 2016. Yet we don't seem to get better schools. We don't seem to get better infrastructure or better services. And I think the people want more accountability. They want more value for their hard-earned money. And I am passionate about that. I don't think it's fair. And in fact, this, the lack of accountability hurts minorities the most. And
15
it hurts
seconds.
those people that are on the edge economically. I mean, those of us that have more resources, money can be wasted, but not those that are really scraping by every day. So it's important to have accountability.
Thank you. Perfect timing. And with that final response, we conclude the first part of this forum. Thank you to the Assembly candidates for their participation tonight, Mr. Cameron Perez-Verdia, Mr. Niall Sherwood-Williams, and Miss Liz Vazquez. Thank you all for participating. You're welcome to sign off. We do not, unfortunately, have time for closing statements. We have to move on to the school board. That's why we give
for the record.
That's why Mr. Williams, no, I'm sorry, I can't give you more time than another candidate tonight.
I'm willing to host a debate with.
That's why we gave candidates a full minute for introductions. So that's just the forum tonight. So with that, thank you again, Assembly candidates. Now we're going to move into the next part of the forum for school board seat A and B. I just want to check in with our tech team to see if we have all of our candidates. We have seat A. Let me just give me a second here, folks. Let's see. Lindsay, what do you see?
Sure. So we have Margot Bellamy and Mark Anthony Cox for seat A. And then for seat B, we've got Kelly Lessons, Dustin Darden, and Rachel Race wasn't able to join. So we do have her campaign manager because it's a legitimate conflict that she's not here. So I'll put her as a panelist just to do an introduction.
Okay, I will make a quick change on my agenda here with those. Okay, let's get started. Let's just start off at the race. Thank you all for being here tonight. So we're going to start with school board introductions, which will be 1 minute each. We ask that you mute yourselves while you are not speaking, and when it is your turn to speak, to unmute yourself and to turn your video on, so if possible, so folks can see you and hear you. If we are trying to respect everyone's time tonight, so we will try to allow you to finish your thought. But Meg, our timekeeper, will be holding up the signs. I realize some of you may not have been here for the rules, so let me back up.
You've disabled my camera.
Dustin, we'll double check. Nobody disabled any cameras. It's not a part of what we do.
It says the host has disabled the camera, and you didn't say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay, so your camera's working. So if you would mute yourself. Let me give a quick reminder of the ground rules before we get started. Sorry, I have to go back to my first page, which is that we're going to start with introductions. You will have 1 minute each. Unmute yourself when it's your turn to speak. If you forget to unmute yourself, our tech team will do it for you to reduce distractions for other candidates and for those who are joining us tonight. After our introductions, we will move on to the questions that have been carefully compiled by the co-sponsoring community councils. Individual answers will be limited to 1 minute and 30 seconds each. We ask you to focus on why your qualifications as a candidate for school board, and to not focus on any other person here tonight. Our guests and audience are here to hear why you are the best candidate for your seats. So we also ask you to remain civil and focus on actually answering the questions, because like I said, they were carefully crafted for a reason. And these are things that our community members are interested in hearing about. So we and candidates, when we go through the list, we will start with the seat A candidates who are here, and it's all been randomized. And then we will, after they have answered, we'll move into the seat B candidates. So hopefully that covers everything, brings everybody up to speed. Meg, our last thing is our timekeeper, and she will be holding up signs to let you know where you're at. So we recommend you are in gallery view, 1 minute, 30 seconds, 15 seconds, and finally this wonderful red stop sign to please stop. We're really going to encourage you to stay on topic and watch the signs. Let's just keep moving because we've got a lot to cover before the end of the night tonight. So moving to introductions in 1 minute or less. Please explain why you are the best candidate for school board. We'll start with candidates for seat A, and tech team, if you could make sure to keep on the muting of folks so that we don't have the background noise that comes up. So we'll start candidates for seat A, starting with Miss Margot Bellamy.
Thank you, Tani, and thank you for the councils for putting this together. I am honored to be here. I am Margot Bellamy, and I am running for re-election to seat A. Why am I the best candidate? Well, I think 3 reasons. I'm committed, probably 4 now that I'm thinking about it again. First of all, I believe in the power and promise of public education. It has meant the world in my life as well as in my family's life. I also am committed. I bring a diverse leadership skill set to the board, whether that's in the classroom, the boardroom, the lunchroom, wherever. And so I am a cornerstone of my campaign is making sure that students have the opportunities that they need to be successful. And so I will fight for that, and I am committed to that.
Thank you. Next, we will go to Mr. Mark Anthony Cox.
Hello, thank you for the time as well. There comes a time in history where the previous generation has taken us as far as they can. It's not for lack of effort. At this rate, we're experiencing a lack of creativity, and the culture is now becoming that of low expectations. So I come to offer a spark. I do have business interests that have helped me in regards of shaping budgets and considering one another's financial capabilities being in the school board. And I do volunteer often with 12 to 19-year-old youth. And so I see, and I've experienced being an ASD graduate, the lack of quality in our education. The 3 things that I'm standing for are protecting parents' rights, enriching the classroom environment, and educating and empowering parents. We know that what we need most in our community is a surplus of knowledge. And then with that knowledge, the ability to apply that so that we would have a better outcome. So I didn't say I was the best, but I did say that I offer something different than our current path. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll be hearing introductions from the candidates for seat B. We will start with Miss Kelly Lessons.
Great. First, I want to acknowledge that Mr. Baldwin is suspending his campaign, that he and I have spoken and have many points of alignment, and that I appreciate his support moving forward. Of the remaining candidates for seat B, I'm the only one who is a parent of children currently enrolled in the school district and who worked to improve Anchorage schools long before running for school board. I got involved for our community from the beginning. I was elected last April, and in 10 months on the job, I visited dozens of schools, supported student learning by maintaining in-person school, and really focused on reading and math proficiency, as well as our career, college, and life readiness. I continue to advocate for small class sizes, access to additional preschool and CTE opportunities, teacher retention, adequate funding, and I've provided strong fiscal oversight, including finding savings. My focus has always been what's best for Anchorage students, and I've been honored to receive endorsements from the Anchorage Education Association and other organizations. Thanks.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Mr. Dustin Darden.
Yeah, so
Mr. Darden, you're breaking up, and I want to give you, we'll pause your time. I want to make sure you have your 30 seconds. So I see that you're driving. If perhaps
children,
you could pull over. Mr. Darden, sorry, we didn't hear the beginning of your intro. So if you could just,
Can you hear me now?
yeah, sort of.
Okay, so-
It sort of breaking
okay.
up. Go ahead, you have 30
Here's-
seconds.
Okay. I'm a person that wants meetings in person for this very reason. This system is going through the communist Chinese Zoom network, which is not American. This is not a real meeting. You guys are sabotaging it. You didn't say the Pledge of Allegiance. And a constitutional prosecutor, and I have, as school board, I will continue to prosecute the school board members who have harmed the children by coercing them to get a bioweapon injection and wearing face diapers that deplete their oxygen supply and cause bacterial pneumonia. The police report that I did arrest all school board members, including the one that I'm running against and the other one on this form, and Dina Bishop. The APD case number is 21250405. That case has been issued by a private person arrest after I told them to cease and desist from doing an illegal action of coercing children to wear medical devices on their faces.
Thank you, Mr. Darden. Your time is up for introductions. And again, we just ask for folks to stay on the topic tonight so that we have an opportunity to learn your qualifications as a candidate. Moving on to Miss Rachel Race, who, as it was mentioned earlier, she
You're
was
a
unable to
communist.
join.
You should need to
She
stop.
was she was unable to join. Mr. Darden, personal attacks will not be tolerated, and I appreciate the time that you're taking to join us today, but it's really unacceptable to issue personal attacks against myself and other members who are here, candidates who are here tonight. So please keep that in mind and let's act civilly in tonight's event. So again, Miss Rachel Race was unable to join for a legitimate issue. So we have, I believe, Carson, if I'm saying that right, Carson Brandon Young, who works for her campaign, is just going to issue a brief statement, and then he will be dropping off from this event. So Mr. Carson, if you want to go, yep, there you go.
Yeah, and I want to thank you. So Rachel Reese, she had a death in the family recently, so she had to go take care of that. I just want to say, I don't want to speak for her too much. I'll just refer you all to her website. It's reesforalaska.com. That's RIESFOR. We all know how to spell Alaska. I would say thank you, Tani, for pronouncing my name right. You'd be surprised how rare that is. I get called Karen a lot. The only thing I'd like to add is she did, Kelly mentioned you're the one with children in the school district. I guess that's true. I did want to add one piece of context. She did have a child in the Anchorage School District, but she did pull him out because she was not happy with the direction and the education he was getting. But yeah, that's my 30 seconds. Thank you all. You can contact her at reesforalaska@gmail.com if you're interested. And I want to ask her anything. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here to give that short introduction. So with that, we are going to move on to our list of 4 questions. As a reminder, all candidates will have up to 1.5 minutes to provide a response to the question that we're asking. A copy of the question will be added to the chat. Let me know again if you would like me to read the full question out loud again. And we ask you stay on topic and address the issue at hand and do not attack other candidates directly or anybody else in tonight's event. And with that, question 1. We are 2 years into a pandemic that still has no clear end in sight. What are your plans to keep students and staff healthy while addressing students' education and socialization gaps that are the result of the pandemic? We'll start first with candidates for seat A, and Miss Margot Bellamy will go first.
Sure. Thank you. Did you put it in the chat? I know it was a COVID pandemic question. Could you read it again, please?
I can repeat it for everyone.
Sure.
What are your plans to keep students and staff healthy while addressing students' education and socialization gaps that are a result of the pandemic?
We've got to do both. We can't, children won't learn if they are really, if we're not meeting their social emotional needs. That makes learning extremely difficult. And so as we move post-pandemic, with still a lot of uncertainty, we've got to be prepared to have environments where we are building, giving kids what they need to in order to be successful academically. But at the same time, we are supporting them in their mental health, their social emotional learning. And it's not just our kids. We've also got to make sure our staff have the supports that they need. So we can't address just the academic. That is an important piece. But the other part of that is making sure that our staff is trained in trauma-informed instruction, making sure we have supports in place to address their physical, emotional, and mental needs. Making sure that we are building relationships with our students and our families so that they have opportunities to grow and to thrive. So we can't just do academics and not do the other because they are so supportive of each other. Thank you.
Thanks for that. Next will be Mr. Mark Anthony Cox.
Thank you. As a school board member, we have the opportunity to repair a lot of breaches that have occurred. We have shoot away at least 3,000 students, and that includes the parents, through vaccine requirements as well as mask mandates. And we now have a rising case in front of us of kids that have not only digressed drastically educationally, but now it has affected their health as well. Some statistics show that it'll be even more difficult for children to read due to some of the decisions that were made. So my plans are repairing that. And in order to repair that, we need to first be forthright in the error of our ways. I believe our families are due at least that. And then how we can continue on this relationship is keeping those open lines of communications. Our parents deserve better, and our students do too. And so in regards to keeping them healthy, our pandemic has turned into an endemic. And so that should be an opportunity for us to breathe a little bit easier at night. That being the case, the things that we've learned through conditioning is washing our hands and making sure that we keep clean spaces and having appropriate distance from people who are feeling ill. These were commonplace for things like the flu and the cold. So now that we can get past the health aspect of it, how can we improve our education? We need to go back to the basics. We have things like Spalding reading, Saxon math, things that have worked at least for a century. So if we get back to that instead of innovating something that has worked for so long, I do see improvement. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Next, we will move to the candidates who are here for seat B. We are going to start with Mr. Darden. Before Mr. Darden starts, just so seat B candidates know, again, what are your plans to keep students and staff healthy while addressing students' education and socialization gaps that are the result of the pandemic? Mr. Darden, you have a minute and a half.
Okay, starting my time now. Stop stealing time. Mute my microphone. You need to stop censoring people from our most foundational right of freedom of speech. Your notions of topics and where you draw the line on speech has to stop, and it needs to stop with our children. The same way you treat grown adults is the same way you should treat children. And you need to stop this insanity, because the big pharmaceutical companies had a recent FOIA request from a news agency, and it shows that they were bankrolling the news agencies.
Mr. Darden, if you could
I'm
stay
not
on
gonna be-
topic, that would be great. So if you need a reminder about the question.
It's my turn to talk, and you need to shut your mouth. This is what's wrong with our system.
Mr. Darden,
let me speak.
I'm sorry,
Let
I'm
me
gonna have
speak.
you meet. This is unacceptable behavior for anyone who attends these events. We've asked folks to stay on topic so that people can hear specifically about the issues.
You're
And
going to lose
understand
your
that-
funding from community council because
Mr. Darden, if you are unable to follow the ground rules of tonight's forum
You
as
asked the
everyone else is
question about
expected,
the vaccine, which is,
as we expect everyone else to follow,
it's a
we will
bioweapon, it's not a
remove
vaccine.
you as a participant. So I'm giving you a warning that if you cannot follow the ground rules that we have asked everyone else to follow, we will remove you as a participant. So
Ma'am, respectfully, you gave me a minute and 30 seconds, you censored me. It is not a
Mr.
vaccine, it's a bioweapon. It's
also, please
it's a
don't look at the
bioweapon.
camera. You're driving. I'm
It's
a
a
little
bio-
alarmed by that. Like, please look at the road. Okay.
It's a bioweapon, it's not a vaccine.
Okay, I think unfortunately, and I'm so sorry to the audience who, is here to hear your qualifications and the answers to this question, but we're gonna have to move on to the next person at this point.
You haven't even let me talk, you communist.
Okay,
asked me-
again, you know what? I'm just gonna go ahead and call it. Again, we've given you a warning. It's unacceptable to have personal attacks on folks here. We're volunteers, and so yeah, this is not acceptable. So if our
You're gonna lose
technical
your
staff
funding.
can go ahead and make him a
Your funding.
participant so he can watch, folks, we'll go ahead and give a contact information or website for Mr. Darden. So for those of you who have more questions or you want to ask him for his specific responses to these questions, we really do encourage you to do that. But we want to just make sure that we are continuing forward with this forum in a manner that's beneficial for everyone who is participating and who's watching. And so I thank you all for your understanding. And with that, I'm going to repeat the question just so that it's been a little bit, but Miss Lessons, you'll be next. What are your plans to keep students and staff healthy while addressing students' education and socialization gaps that are the result of the pandemic? You'll have a minute and a half. Go ahead.
Thank you for the question. I think that the intersection of student wellness and student learning, it's what brought me here as a candidate. It's what brought me to the table to begin with. And it's what we need to address as a community as we move forward. So I think that there's some practical nuts and bolts things we can do. I'm supportive of the plans the district has to improve our ventilation. It's something the districts across the country are doing. We're using federal relief funds strategically to upgrade those ventilation systems. And I think that is a crucial way, as Mr. Cox mentioned, as we evolve towards this endemic situation. And we can deal with respiratory viruses generally through improved ventilation and create a healthier learning environment and working environment for our staff. When we look to the curricular updates, I think that it's really important that we have social and emotional learning embedded throughout the school day. It's not just a lesson here or a lesson there. It's an approach. Are we dealing with students' needs? We know that this year has been a challenge with their behavioral needs, and allowing teachers flexibility to address whatever situation presents itself is really important. We need to invest in high frequency tutoring to address the gaps, which are profound. And I'm especially concerned about our youngest learners next year's second and third graders who began their schooling online and have the most ground to gain. I'm also concerned about the district's funding as we move forward, specifically with respect to class sizes. So I think we will see academic gains if we can adequately staff our classrooms. So that's important as we move forward.
Thank you, Ms. Lessons. Okay, moving on now to question 2, which is a 2-part question. Students' mental health before and during COVID has been a huge concern for our community. Young people have higher rates of anxiety, depression, and general uncertainty about their future, especially as they look ahead to find jobs, housing, and other opportunities in Anchorage. What role do you see for ASD in providing both mental health services and other academic supports?
Am I first?
That's a great point. Yeah, sorry, let me tell you who's first. We will start with candidates for seat A. This time it's not you, Ms. Bellamy, it's actually Mr. Cox. Go ahead.
Perfect. Thank you for your time. So when it comes to the disposition of students, I have this group, right, in my church, 12 to 19-year-olds. And when I first met them, whether they want to admit it or not, they were an unruly crew. But now here we are 2 years into it, and I give them finance classes, I give them English classes, and I fill in those gaps of what they need educationally. And do you know what happened? They were re-inspired to dream bigger and They now want to be lawyers. They want to be doctors. They want to be surgeons. They want to be my surgeon and my doctor and my lawyer, which is all that much more better. So what I see is the biggest issue is the culture. What can ASD do is once again challenge students to achieve more and to be more. Why I'm here today is because I had a litany of people who told me you can do better and you will do better. Here's how. So that's what we can do for our teachers. And in regards to their mental health, it's something that heals almost miraculously when you give someone purpose, when you give someone a direction and you speak to their needs. And that's what our educators have. They have an intrinsic ability to educate, to reach to their students and to know their needs and to fill in those gaps that may not be filled at home. And of course, in regards to parents, they have the first view of what their kids could be. So more conversation and communication with them is how we can get these gaps secured. And that's my answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Now, Ms. Bellamy, you're up.
Thank you. I firmly believe that no significant learning takes place without meaningful relationships. When our kids come to school, they have a right to expect a place where they are cared for and they're valued, no matter what their zip code, no matter what their differences are. COVID has exacerbated things that we knew before COVID. Right now, COVID exposed them. It's kind of like the X-ray that just exposed so many broken bones, not just in education, but also in health and economics, you name it. So when it comes to what making sure that our, how do we deal with, how we are able to deal with the mental health of our students and our staff, it's going to take partnerships, strong partnerships. We partner with the Muni. We partnered with the Muni to get additional resources to the Volunteers of America. We have partnered with, we have the opportunity to partner with Providence and other youth serving agencies. We've got to educate our kids, but we've also got to make sure that they are in places and with services that they need.
Thank you, Ms. Bellamy. Now we're going to go on to the candidates for seat B, which is Ms. Kelly Lessons. You're up.
Great. So my awareness of mental health as an issue of concern arose actually out of West Anchorage proper through the group at West High School called Mental Health Advocates Through Storytelling, MHATS. And it was through them that I learned really as a parent of young children that older high school students were struggling. And this was again before the pandemic. I think that one of the things that we need to do at the board level is to continue to advocate for and allocate resources so that we can not just build temporary partnerships, not just so we can patch through 1 year of funding. We have got to advocate for adequate funding so that we can have the counselors that we know that we need at our schools, the behavioral specialists, the whole infrastructure that could exist to support our students. I also think that we need to advocate for changes to how state standards, how the state standards for health curriculum are written to include mental health in those state standards. I think that's another thing that the school board can do. I'm really proud that I asked some questions not so long ago about unallocated ESSER funds, which led the board to direct $5 million over the next school year towards mental health. I think that's wonderful, but it's not sustainable unless we see action from Juneau. And for that reason, I am supportive of House Bill 259, and I urge anybody here tonight to push for that.
Thank you. Now, question 3. Members of some parents groups have called for the removal of hundreds of books from library shelves nationwide since last fall. Schools and public librarians are reporting a dramatic increase in book challenges in recent months, particularly those with LGBTQ+ or anti-racist themes. As these efforts continue to emerge locally, what will your philosophy be in responding to these book challenges? We'll start with Miss Margot Bellamy.
Sure, thank you. As a former librarian and a parent of former ASD students and the nana of two grandsons who attend ASD schools, I believe our children have a right to expect that they will have access to the resources, the learning materials that they need. I respect parent right to object to anything we do in education, but there's a process for that. And that process requires that, that parents, number one, speak up about what it is that they do not want for their child. And then we have a process in place to make sure that the material is taken through a process with staff and community together. And then a decision is made. But I am not for banning books. That would not be anything that I would advocate for. I would probably do the exact opposite, because I value students need to be able to have access to the subjects that they believe that they are interested in and that they would benefit from. And yes, if parents don't want that, they simply need to talk to the librarian, talk to the principal, or file a legitimate complaint. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cox?
Thank you for your time. So I've had the opportunity to publish a book and place it into our Title I schools. And that book, before it was published, it had to go through the principal, who also then had to go through the librarian. And then it had a formal introduction of, congratulations, Mr. Cox, your book's on the shelf. The book, the contents of it was a self-help book, talking about topics like time, family, money, the opposite sex, and friends, and a holistic approach to all those topics. But the thing about it is, if we feed our children a bunch of junk food, can we expect for them to be healthy? Now, some of the topics have been found out to be pornographic material, and I don't believe any of us as parents want our children to be exposed to that, especially through the K through 12 years. And so I am for certain material being filtered out of our children's minds during that time period. It's just not appropriate. And when it comes to the process and how we do it, I love the public, the civic opportunities that we have to attest to these things and say, this is something that I don't want my child to do. It's the same thing that I hope for opt-in clauses in regards to sex education classes as well. So it's not that we're trying to ban books. We're trying to give our kids the best nutrients as possible, because the K through 12 experience is an opportunity for us to establish a foundation that they will take with them into college. Do we want our children, do we want our fellow citizens to come into the world and to higher education with grotesque thoughts? I don't think so.
Thank you. Now we'll go to the candidates for seat B with Miss Lessons.
Great. Well, I'll be pretty brief. I have a deep belief that all students deserve access to age-appropriate fiction and nonfiction that exposes them to ideas, creates empathy, understanding, and builds citizenship. The world is opened when we read books. So I'm not in favor of book banning. I personally believe that school librarians, as professionals and subject matter experts, are capable of making age-appropriate choices for our students. I'm also supportive of the recently passed, and Ms. Bellamy was referring to, or maybe alluding to this, there's a process that has existed that is being improved, has just been improved, to engage with potentially controversial materials. And so there is a new administrative regulation that is spelling out how, should there be controversies in the future, the administration would deal with that. I think it's really important to know that in ASD, the board is the what and the administration is the how. And so we bring our values, and the administration is ultimately the entity that figures out whether a book is or is not appropriate for our students. Thanks.
Thank you. Now we are going to move on to our final question for the evening, and we hope you stick around after the questions, audience, because we do have some information for you. So question 4 is a 2-part question, and I'll repeat it since it's a little bit longer question for both seat A and B folks. Several U.S. states are putting forward legislation that would require teachers to post lesson plans in advance, restrict what can be included, or invite parents groups to influence or approve curriculum. Would you support similar legislation in Alaska? And what role do you think members of Anchorage community should play in determining school policies and curriculum? For this question, final question, we will start with candidates for seat A, Ms. Margot Bellamy.
Sure, that's an excellent question. Teachers are the experts. Parents are their child's first, their first teacher. Somewhere in between, we've got to allow teachers to do what they do best, which is to teach the curriculum that the board approves. So teachers aren't bringing their own curriculum to the classroom. They bring lots of resources. They bring lots of expertise. So I am hoping that we in Alaska, we do not get to the point where we are micromanaging the classroom to that degree. I think it will stifle teachers' ability to teach and students' ability to learn. Is there a role for parents? I think parents have, when in our curriculum adoption process, it is a comprehensive process that provides opportunities for input and for questions from parents. It's a very open process. I think that's what we need to make sure parents know, is that we're not doing this work in isolation, but we do have the experts who absolutely understand the curriculum and how to teach it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bellamy. Next will be Mr. Cox.
There is voluminous testimony from current and past TAs and teachers that suggests that the board has instructed the school district to give these instructors who have innate abilities to educate our children curriculum out of a box, scripts, things to read from, and limit the way they're doing things now. So for the question to be phrased in a way of, will transparency in the classroom restrict our teachers? I believe the answer is no. What we're suffering with right now is a lack of trust. Parents don't trust what's going on. And just like hand sanitizer says 99.99%, I can't say all parents don't trust, but I can say there is a number out there of parents who do not trust what the school board and therefore the school district and therefore the teachers are teaching. Hence why the previous question alluded to books that are being restricted because of content. There has been a time where we have been asleep. We have trusted our school board and our school district to manage our funds wisely and manage the education of our children. And what do we have to show for it but the lowest proficiency scores in the nation? So as a school board member, I hope to change this, and I have substantial plans on how to do it. You can reach me at www.macforanc.com and vote Mark Anthony Cox for Anchorage School Board, seat A. Thank you for your time all.
Thank you. Now, before we go to seat B, I'll reread the question, or the 2 questions, sorry. Would you support similar legislation in Alaska that requires you to post lesson plans in advance or invite parents groups to influence or approve curriculum? The other question is, what role do you think members of the Anchorage community should play in determining school policies and curriculum? Ms. Lessons, you're up.
I think it's a great question. It gets to the heart of what makes a teacher. I think that teachers need to be given the tools, the training, and opportunities for ongoing professional development to perfect their craft and address their students' needs. A number of years ago now, there was the district adopted new reading curriculum that didn't actually contain the correct fundamentals of reading. So in order to address those deficiencies, they adopted what are called priority plans. And I think that that is what Mr. Cox might have been referring to for the K-5 English language learners. That has been an ongoing learning process. And I think that the district, the administration, and the teachers and the community is still recovering from that and is learning from that process. And I hope that it informs new curricular adoptions as we move forward. I do not support the notion that a teacher needs to have an entire year's worth of, let's say, a world history class spelled out a year in advance and posted online. If I were a world history teacher and I wanted to address, the Ukraine crisis right now, I couldn't do that if I had crafted my my plan 6 months ago. So I think it's important to honor that nimbleness. I do think that ASD needs to improve the communication with parents. We have not had robust parent influence on input on the curriculum as they are getting adopted.
Thank you, Ms. Lessons. And with that, final response, this concludes the 2020 West Anchorage Candidates Forum. So we just want to take an opportunity to thank, yes, what a fun event. We just want to take an opportunity to thank all of the candidates who joined tonight in their participation. We know it takes a lot of time right now, and it does not go unnoticed by certainly our committee. And a reminder as a candidates for District 3 for Anchorage Assembly, who are we saw or heard from earlier, Cameron Perez-Verdia, Niall Sherwood-Williams, and Liz Vazquez. And then tonight, I'm going to read out all of the candidates that are currently for the seat A and B, but a special thanks to those who are still with us and showed up. Please wave if we can unpin people. You can wave to the camera for folks. So the candidates currently for seat A, for seat A school board, Dan Loring, who did not join us tonight, Margot Bellamy, I think right there, hi, and Mark Anthony Cox, and yes, and then the candidates for seat B school board, we have Kelly Lessons, who did join us tonight, thank you, and then Dustin Darden, who was with us earlier, and finally Rachel Race. And with that, we move into the final closing thoughts and some just key information we want to share with our audience. Panelists, you're welcome to stick around, and I don't know, or we can switch you over to participants, but we would like to thank all 100 members or so of the public who watched this event this evening, and also to those who will be watching the recording here in the near future. As a reminder, the 2022 regular municipal election is Tuesday, April 5th, and it is a vote at home election. Also, and I got this information right from the municipal election clerk's website, traditional polling places will not be opened and are not an option for voting on election day. Ballot packages will be mailed to qualified Anchorage voters no later than March 15, 2022, and I'm told that they may already be in the mail. So in the next week or so, please keep an eye out for your ballot. If you have any issues regarding your ballot or have other voting questions, there is a voter hotline, 907-243-VOTE or 243-8683, or you can visit the website muni.org/elections. So just quick notes to make sure that everyone's vote counts, because we know that every vote does count and is so important as a part of our civic responsibility to vote. We want you to vote your ballot, filling the ovals in completely in black and blue or blue pen. Then you're going to place your voted ballot into the enclosed secrecy sleeve and place the secrecy sleeve into the ballot return envelope. And please, please remember to sign your voter declaration on the back of the ballot return envelope. We want your vote to go smoothly through the process. You can save on postage, place your ballot in a secure Dropbox, or if return it to the Anchorage Vote Center. We do have a Dropbox at the Spinard Rec Center, and also, I didn't write this down, but I believe West High School. So hopefully my tech team will give me a nod. But if you choose to mail it with a first class postage at the USP with the USPS. But something to keep in mind, this is very important. Ballot envelopes must be postmarked on or before Election Day. And if you mail it on April 5th, which is acceptable, you must get it hand stamped by the postal staff. So please keep that in mind. You actually have to get somebody to stamp it. And if it's a late evening, you can always go to the airport post office, but you must get it hand stamped. And finally, the Muni elections and ballot tracks are partnering to provide ballot tracking this year. So for this election, you can receive text, email, or voicemail alerts about the status of your ballot. I know after this event, I'm going to go up and sign up. It is at anchoragevotes.com. And finally, I really want to end this night with a huge shout out to all of the dedicated and hardworking members of the planning committee. And for those tech crew, if you could put your video cameras on and wave, because if you feel comfortable, this is not possible without our wonderful team. And tonight, Meg, Anna, Lindsay, and Carolyn just did an awesome job and was really helpful. We can't do this event without our committee volunteers, but also without our tech volunteers. So thank you for helping create and run another successful candidates forum. We look forward to seeing everyone again in the fall, because there will be a fall Anchorage candidates forum this year. And with that, we'll conclude. Our tech team will be staying on the line to debrief, but the rest of you, I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. And we hope this forum has been informative, and no matter what or who you support or what you support, the West Anchorage Community Councils, please urge you to vote. So thank you, everyone. Have a great night. And thanks again for being here.